My name's Anthony, I'm from iMigration. We are a registered migration agency. We're on St Kilda Road. We've been working with Dexatech for a fair while now, so I appreciate the invitation to come here to speak. Thank you for organising today. We deal with all sorts of visas, partner visas, student visas, permanent visas, business-sponsored visas, not refugee visas, visa cancellations, visa refusals, all that sort of nasty stuff. We deal with the whole works. We've got Spanish speakers, Korean speakers, Thai speakers, Chinese speakers, English speakers. So we're basically here to help you guys stay on here after you finish studying, whether it be your bachelor's, your master's, your PhDs, so you can start your future here. And I think you all got excited by that panel before on the potential that there is if you want to stay down here in Australia. So I want to run through a few changes that occurred recently. First of all, on the 1st of July, they add occupations and they change this list, which you can use for sponsored visas and independent visas. If anyone's a good chef or cook, they brought that back, or if anyone knows anyone, you can now get your PR that way quite easily. Same with trade occupations. Prices keep going up, they never come down when it comes to visas. Immigration recently included a special charge if you have dependents. So if anyone here has a child or a partner on their visa, now you've got to pay for them when you do your next visa. It's never coming down, okay? They did big changes on business-sponsored visas a little bit about a year ago, and that's affected a lot of people. And they've had some other rules to do with things called skills assessments, which I'm not sure if anyone's done one of those before, but they've now got expiry dates on them, which they strictly enforce. But they've also got some other changes that are coming up. Now, I've got a sheet. I don't know if you guys have got that sheet, because we've got... Justin, can you please give those out? Just quickly grab one and pass it on, because you'll be using this for your own benefit, and it's directly related to what I'm talking about here. You've got a sheet that's going around now, and on that sheet, one side has got the points test, the other side has got English information about English testing. So, everyone knows about the IELTS test, correct? Has everyone done IELTS before? I never have, okay? But I've heard it's a horrible experience. It's something, unfortunately, that everyone needs for a visa. Unless you're doing a partner visa, you don't need to do that. Okay, but any visa, business-sponsored visa, independent visa, student visas as well for some people require this. Good news though, as of November, it's changing, that you don't just need IELTS. You can use different forms of English testing. Things like TOEFL. Has anyone ever done TOEFL? Yeah. Who prefers TOEFL to IELTS?
Yeah.
Great. Scrap English altogether. TOEFL will be accepted as of November, which is really good, because it's done on a computer, you get the results a lot quicker, and it's cheaper than IELTS. On the piece of paper that you've got, there's a comparison table on what you need to get in your TOEFL compared to IELTS. So you might find that a little bit easier. That's important to know. They're also taking PTE academic, and as of next year, Cambridge academic English they will be accepting. So this is good. It's knocking down the barriers for IELTS, so there's other options there. That's a very big change that's happening in November, so all of you should consider doing that. And it's important to note all of these English tests that you need to do for visas, they're valid for a 3-year period. Immigration will accept it if it's done within the last 3 years. Okay. Graduate work stream and post-study work stream visa. Does anyone know what this is? It's called the Subclass 485 Temporary Graduate Visa. As the name suggests, you must be a graduate to apply for this visa. This is something that everyone here who is a student should be looking at. First of all, who here is a student? Put your hand up. Okay, a lot of you. Who here is finishing soon? And by soon, I mean that could be 6 months, 12 months. Good. So this is something you should be looking at if you're wanting to stay here, because you probably looked at PR and go, oh, how am I going to get 60 points or this and that? This is a good stepping stone visa that will give you 18 months or 24 months. Very important to note that there's 2 types. There's called a graduate work stream and a post-study work stream. Put your hand up if you got your first student visa before November 2011. Who's been here since November 2011? Who's still studying? No one?
Since?
You. Okay, so basically there's only a couple of you. If you got your first student visa before November 2011, you cannot look at this post-study work stream option. You can only look at the top one, okay, which is the graduate work stream. Everyone who got their first student visa after November 2011 can look at the post-study work stream, which is the better one, because it lasts for 2 years instead of 18 months for starters. So it's very important because this takes into account which one you're looking at and what the requirements are. So for example, you've got two streams here. So the few of you who got your first student visa before November 2011, you must be looking at this left-hand side. Everyone else, look at the right-hand side. When you apply for this visa, you must have an eligible visa, meaning you can't have your student visa expire after you complete your course and then think, oh, I'll apply for that now. You've got to hold a student visa or have held one in the last 6 months. Okay, so you've got 6 months to apply for it after you finish. You also must be in Australia when you apply. So you can't leave, go back to Mexico or wherever, see your family for Christmas, New Year's, and then try and apply for the visa over there. You've got to be in Australia. Super important. You also, for a few of you who had that student visa before November 2011, must nominate an occupation on the SOL list. Skilled occupation list. Who knows what that is? It's that list, it's that horrible list, which kind of determines whether you can stay here or not. And it changes each year. If you got your student visa recently, that list is irrelevant. Doesn't matter what you're studying. You could study a Bachelor of Animal Husbandry, you know, or pig farming or whatever it might be, and be able to get this visa. Yeah? So it doesn't really matter. Food technology, whatever, you are all safe. Sciences, you're safe. Okay? If you've got your visa after that November date, because you don't need to nominate an occupation. Bear in mind though, this is a temporary visa. It will give you 2 years, okay, if you're on that side there, 18 months if you're on that side there. PhDs, 4 years. Who's going to be finishing your PhD soon?
Got
it. Or they got no confidence they're going to finish. Okay. Another thing, you must study here for a minimum of 2 years. So you can't come down here and do a 1.5 year master's. Well, you can. If you do a 1.5 year master's, you just can't get a visa after it. Who here is doing a 1.5 year master's? There may be some of you. Yes, a little hand up the back. So you've got to be careful on what you do, because you can't go, okay, once I finish that, apply for the visa. You've got to extend your study out to a minimum of 2 years. Unless you've studied something prior to that, you can combine it. So it's 2 years of study from one course or a combination of courses. Okay? So it's tricky what combination you can use, so always ask us first before trying to combine them together, but it can be a series of courses. You must have competent English, equivalent of IELTS 6, or if you've got your little tables, whatever that is in total. And that must have been done within the last 3 years. Skills assessment. Who knows what a skills assessment is? Yeah, skills assessments are horrible. Especially if you're an engineer. Any engineers here? Yeah, most of you. You've got immigration doesn't take your word for it that you've got the skills to choose an occupation. Alright? So basically, this only applies for when you're looking at a permanent visa, or those of you who got your first student visa before November. You must get your qualification and sometimes work experience assessed by an independent body who immigration have given authority to. They will then say, yes, you can be a chemical engineer for your visa, or they'll say, no, you can't. It's important, this needs to be done. If you don't do this and it's not successful, you won't get your visa. But all of you who don't need to nominate an occupation, you don't need to do a skills assessment yet. You need to do it later for your permanent visa. Okay? But something to think about. These skills assessments you can do before you finish your course. If you've got a bachelor's degree already, generally you can start the skills assessment. So I'm guessing the majority of you may be doing master's degrees or postgraduate, is that correct? So you can consider doing the skills assessment stage now. It's important to note that. Health insurance. Everyone here should have health insurance if they're on a student visa. If not, you're in breach of a condition. You need to organise it once again for this visa. You need to organise it prior to lodging the visa as well. That was a rule change last year. A lot of people don't know about it. Lodge visas themselves. Immigration said, where's your health insurance? Oh, I haven't organised it yet. Bang, visa refused. Must organise it before you lodge the visa. Also, health checks. You need to have health checks done. So if anyone has health conditions, depending on what it is, it may affect your visa outcome. It's important to note they do not do blood tests for this visa, this temporary visa. So if you've got hepatitis, HIV, things like that, you'll be able to get through because they won't pick that up. But when you're looking at your permanent visa, it's a little bit more difficult, okay? Important to note that. Police checks too. This gets raised a lot when I speak to a lot of clients from Mexico. Now, anyone here got a police check or a criminal record? Oh, no. Okay, good. Well, if you have a criminal record, yeah, good idea. Put your hand down for the moment. If you have a criminal record, it can affect your application, depending on what it's for. Because everyone goes, oh, I've got a speeding ticket here, or I got a fine for fair evasion. My kid, who's got that before? I have. I think half the room. That doesn't affect your application. It's only if you have been sentenced to 12 months imprisonment or more. So if you assault someone, and in this country, the law's terrible. You can punch someone, assault someone, beat someone up, and get 2 months of speeding sentence. It's not going to affect your visa. Only if you've been sentenced to 12 months or more. If you have, so if anyone in this room, you don't have to admit it now, if you've got a record for 12 months imprisonment or more, you can still get around it. So you can ask me about that later. I won't be scared of it. Okay? These things you need to do for every country you've lived in for 12 months or more. Okay? So that's important to know. Here's a little look at who the skills assessing bodies are. This is important because all of you will need to do this if you are looking at a permanent visa afterwards. Temporary visas, some of you need to do it. Permanent ones, all of you will need to do it. So it's important that you take skills assessments seriously because they take time to do and time to prepare. Some of them you might think, oh, I don't have any evidence of that, and it might take you 6 months to find the evidence or whatever. So this is important, skills assessments, something to look into. Now, here's some permanent visa options that are governed by the points test. And that's what you guys wanted to learn a little bit about today. So we are going to look at the points test. We've got about 7 minutes to fly through it. So, on the piece of paper that you've been given out, you have got a points test. You're more than welcome to circle what you believe you have. Age, 25 to 32, you get the most points. You get 30 points for that, so that's wonderful. English is a good way of getting points too. If you have IELTS 6 or equivalent, you get nothing. So you've got to really be pushing to try and get up to IELTS 7 or equivalent. And on the other side, you'll see what the equivalent total is if you're more confident with that. Yes,
Will it be the overall or each by band?
Very good question. Each band.
Each band?
Each band. Points? Yes. If you have a look at the table I've got, it shows you what you need in each band. So you might say, well, what's the point of having an overall band? I don't know, it's stupid, isn't it? Yeah, they need you to have it in each band for IELTS. If you can see with the TOEFL, it's variable for each band. IELTS, it's got to be all the same. And on the one test. So you can't give a combination of tests and say, oh, well, I got 7 in writing on that one, 7 in reading on that, 7 here, combine them. It's got to be on the one test within the last 3 years. Very important to know. Good question. Work experience. Work experience can only be after you got your initial qualification related to the degree. So if anyone here is, for example, anyone doing a Masters of Engineering, okay, those of you doing that, do you have a Bachelor's of Engineering as well? Yeah, so those of you with a Bachelor of Engineering, you can count any work experience after your bachelor's degree because it's seen as skilled already. Okay, so you can count overseas work experience, you can count work experience in Australia. They're looking at 20 hours per week. And why? Because that's what you can work whilst you're studying. So you just need to work 20 hours a week in your nominated occupation or relevant to your nominated occupation, and you will get points. 1 year in Australia gives you 5 points. 3 years overseas gives you 5 points. So you can figure out what you think you might be able to get, but it's important, it must be after you've got your initial qualification relevant to the occupation. Qualifications, that's pretty straightforward, 15 points everyone should get. Unless you've got a PhD, then you will get 20 points. Pretty cool, huh? So the study requirements. Remember how I talked before about studying here for 2 years? You study here for 2 years, you automatically get 5 points. You've got to complete the course first. So you can't be halfway through a PhD and go, cool, 2 years, give me my 5 points. You've got to complete the course. It's important to note that. Study in a regional area, not applicable to anyone here. Professional year, anyone heard of a professional year? It's applicable to IT, engineering, and accounting graduates. When you finish studying here, you can pay about $12,000 to do a 1 year course to get 5 points. It's a pretty easy way to get 5 points if you've got the spare cash to throw out. Ask me about that later, I can give you some more information. Community language, NAATI. Who's heard of NAATI? NAATI, National Authority of Translators and Interpreters. If you ever need to have your degree here or your birth certificate translated for immigration purposes, you've got to send it to one of these people in Australia. If you do that test yourself, it costs about $800. And they recommend if you've got IELTS 7.5 or so or equivalent, you do this test, you pass it, 70% pass mark, you get 5 points. So important. If anyone thinks, yeah, my English is pretty good, and of course my Spanish is good, I'll do this test, get 5 points. It's about $800 to do the test. Something for you guys to consider. Might be an easy way to get 5 points. Partner skills. Anyone here got a partner? Put your hands up. Most of the room. Great. Okay. So if your partner is Australian, citizen, or PR, you can't get partner points. But if your partner has also got IELTS 6 and a skills assessment in an occupation on the list, you can get 5 points from them. So that's a very interesting one to look at. And I always say, if you don't have a partner, well, maybe when you're looking for partners, you can ask them these questions. How's your English? Okay, exactly to good 5 points. And the other thing that you can get points
find an Australian
state or territory nomination. So if you find your occupation is not on the list, and you're like, damn it, how am I going to get PR? But you see that in Victoria they have a demand of the occupation, or in New South Wales, you can get 5 points and sponsorship through that state. They don't promise you work, but they basically say, hey, we will let you come here because you are in demand. Because you've got that skilled occupation list, which has only got about 180 occupations, but every state and territory say, well, we have our own list because we disagree with immigration's list. So you might find if your occupation is not on that list, it might be on a state or territory list, and you might meet their guidelines to get points that way. So that's another good way of doing it. And those who might have family here, who are PRs or citizens. Anyone got cousins, aunties, uncles who's PR or citizen living here in Victoria? 10 points, 10 points. Gives you 10 points. Important towards what's called a subclass 489 visa. So keep sending them Christmas cards and birthday cards. Be on their good side. Alright? So that's basically how the points test works. You can do your own points test, figure out how many points you've got. We've got a minute to go, so I'll fly through this last part. What you do is, once you've got your 60 points, you lodge an expression of interest. Invitations get given out every 2 weeks, every second and fourth Monday of every month. If you then get that invitation saying apply for PR, you've got 60 days to do it. Once you make that visa application is when you get your bridging visa, alright? So just because you have 60 points doesn't guarantee you PR. It just puts your expression of interest in and you wait for that invitation to apply for PR. The more points you have, the better your chances. Because a lot of people have 60 points, but they will always give invitations out based on points. So you've got 65 points, you get preference to those with 60 points. Okay? So that's basically how it works. They give out about 1,200 invitations every 2 weeks. So it's important to try and get as many points as you can so you can get permanent residency. Accountants, there's heaps of spots. That might go up to 65 points if anyone's doing accounting. IT is around 65 as well. So those of you doing IT, you've got to try and push your points up. But that's basically what I want to run through today, and I'm going to open it up for questions now. But visas are always changing, laws are always changing. What I'm telling you today might not be applicable in 2 years' time. What your friends did last year might not be what you can do today. So you've got to be careful about what advice you get, and always keep checking on how things are applying to you because of the laws that are always changing. And if you ever need advice, always get it in writing. Okay? Very important. So if you ever want to ring up immigration, I generally suggest don't. Send them an email instead, because then you've got the response in writing. They give so much bad advice on the phone and then you've got no record of it. So that concludes it. Let's do some questions now. Sorry, I want to get it over. Who's got some questions? Yes,
I want to bring my parents over.
You want to bring your parents over?
Yeah, I'm a permanent resident. I've been here only a year.
Who else here is a permanent resident or a citizen of Australia? Half of the room. Good. So this may help a lot of you. Yes. Parent visas. This is very interesting. There used to be 2 types of parent visas. A normal parent visa which cost about $2,000 and took about 15 years to get your mum and dad over here. Because that's how much demand there is and they don't give many options out. So they then introduced another visa called the contributory parent visa. Because contribution, they have to make a contribution. And that contribution is they need to pay an extra like $44,000 each to get their visa. So the visa itself costs about $3,000 to lodge, takes about 2 years to process, 1.5 to 2 years. When immigration is ready to grant your parents the visa, they say, okay, we're ready, here's an invoice for $44,000 per parent. So that's the way you can bring the parents over in 2 years because they've got rid of the other parent visa, but there may be talk that it might come back for a very short period of time, but don't count on it. So if you want to bring your parents over, it's a contributory parent visa. A few criteria for them: 50% or more of the parents' children have to be PRs or citizens of Australia. Okay, very important to note. And settled in Australia. Now, there's no true definition of settled, and you said you've been PR for about a year. How long have you been in Australia, though?
Same time.
For 1 year.
A little bit over.
So there you go. I mean, the unofficial rule is they want you to be in Australia for 2 years first. But if you can prove that you've been here for less than 2 years but you're settled, so if you've bought a house here, you've had a child here, whatever it might be, you've got a really secure job. Yeah. I don't want to say anything just in case I was wrong. Yes. Well, you have a child, and that shows yes, you are settled here in Australia. You can probably fight that argument even though it's been less than 2 years. So it's important to know you get that application in, it takes about 2 years, so within that 2 years, you've got to come up with that 44 grand. So a lot of people think, oh, wait till I have that money first. No, just get the application in. It's a couple of $1,000s. Worry about how to get that $44,000 to parent later. Okay? So that's how parent visas work.
I heard there's a temporary, or is that no longer?
Oh yeah, that helps too. If you don't have the 44K, there's another way that they can grant you with a 2-year temporary parent visa, and instead of the $44,000, you pay like $26,000, $28,000 instead. And then within the 2 years, at the end of that, you then apply for the permanent parent visa and pay kind of the difference of what it was. So what's 44 minus 28? Thank you. You've then paid out $16,000. It's a little bit more. So you can kind of split it over 2 things, but then it takes a lot longer to get the permanent visa for them. But they get a temporary one first. Medical entitlements, they don't get medical entitlements for a fair while. The rule is 10 years. There are ways to get it less than that. Okay, so if you're, and they can't have any health problems. They've got heart issues, they're on medication for all that. It can cause a big problem because immigration knows once you're in the country as a permanent resident, it then can be their responsibility to take care of, or our responsibility as taxpayers, all of us, to take care of them. So your parents have to be in good health. Important to know. So the sooner you can do it, the better. Alright? So that is kind of a really quick parent visa scheme. I'm going to shoot over here and back here.
Just in the same, is there a age limit for the parents?
There is no age limit for the parents. If they're doing an onshore visa, they have to be over a certain age. If it's offshore, no age limit.
Once they get it, if they get a permanent residency, then it's the same. Like you just keep the permanent, keep renewing it every 4 years, I think it is.
Yeah, it's a permanent visa. They get the permanent, they're a permanent visa, and then they can apply for citizenship after 4 years or so.
But you say that they don't get Medicare.
Not for 10 years. Generally, they say not for 10 years. There are ways around it, though.
What kind of ways?
I'm still trying to figure it out. There are.
Okay.
There are certain ways around it. Yes.
Hi, Anthony.
Hello.
Your agency provides services in order to get citizenship?
Yes, we do. However, we always recommend people to kind of do citizenship yourself rather than wasting your money on us, because it's a very straightforward process. Citizenship only costs $300 or so to lodge, and Jocelyn is happy to give you a little bit of an email with links and stuff on how to do it. We generally don't charge for it because it's very, very straightforward to do. But we can send you some pointers on how to do it.
Thank you.
Just a question. Is it true that you need to be here for 4 months in order to get the citizenship, like 4 years, and that you cannot leave the country for more than 1 year? Is it true?
Okay. To get citizenship, you basically need to be in Australia for 4 years, 1 year of that as a permanent resident. If you are leaving Australia during that time, it depends how long you're leaving for. If there's little holidays here and there, it's okay. If they're for longer periods, then sometimes you may need to wait longer until you qualify for that. It's also important to note that during that whole 4-year period, you had to hold a visa the whole time. So if your visa ran out one day, or you forgot to renew a bridging visa or whatever, that resets that citizenship clock. So if you ever have a visa cancelled or refused and then you've appealed it and then won, sometimes that cancels that clock and that clock resets. But basically, I mean, the easiest thing is when you lodge your citizenship application, you don't meet the criteria, they kind of tell you, hey, you don't meet the criteria here, it's only $300 to lodge. Okay? Yes?
For the post-study work stream visa, it doesn't matter with a couple of months or something, just for holidays?
Once you get the visa, or once it's processing.
Yeah, in order to apply for that one, the post-study work stream.
Yes.
It doesn't matter with the country for a couple of months or something before applying for that?
No, that's fine. With that post-study work visa, remember that 485 one we were talking about before? You must be in Australia when you apply for the visa, and it must be within 6 months of your course completion. So it's important to note, if you finish your course, say, at the end of the year, who finishes at the end of the year? Okay, so your visa probably runs out on March 15th next year, okay? So you can finish your course, go home for Christmas, New Year's, all that rubbish, and then you can come back here, sorry. Oh, I'm a Christian, so it's okay. You can go overseas for all of that, and then return back here January, February, launch the visa, okay? That's fine. You don't have to do it immediately after you finish studying. Does that answer your question? But you've got to be in Australia, okay? And within 6 months of your course completion. And then you get a bridging visa, which lets you stay here whilst they process it. But it's really fast now. It's about 4 weeks.
If I'm getting married to a New Zealand citizen, will my status change?
Yes. There is a special visa that New Zealanders get that let them come here, and it's not a permanent residency, but they come here and it's like a 5-year visa that just renews every 5 years. They pretty much get the same rights. I don't think they can vote or things like
That's the one
that.
that I have now, but
Oh,
will it change to anything else?
if you do,
Get married to?
it doesn't make a difference. So you've already got that visa with them.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it makes no difference if you're married.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Hello.
In terms of the partner visa,
Yes.
in the website it says that it takes around, well, it's from 1 year to 1 year and a half to have the visa granted. Does it really take that long? I mean, just consider.
I've got one that the department's been looking at for 26 months.
But
It's a really
considering that everything is.
Processing, okay, this is how it works. When you lodge a partner visa, who here is considering doing a partner visa? Okay, I'll just look at you when I talk then. Okay, when you look at doing a partner visa, when you lodge it, you lodge a temporary and a permanent visa at the same time.
Yeah.
Once that's lodged, you are then eligible to upgrade it to the permanent one 2 years from initially lodging the application. If the first visa, the temporary part, takes 1 to 1.5 years, it doesn't really matter because you're here on a bridging visa, full-time work rights during that time. And if they then grant that to you after 1.5 years, 6 months later, you're then eligible to get the permanent one anyway.
Okay.
But it can take up to that time, anywhere between 1 month up to about 14 months, because as they make other visas harder, all of a sudden, people have just found themselves in relationships and they're lodging partner visas. So that's why they're really behind with it. You've got to make sure you have everything there at the beginning though if you want it quicker, and we mark them as what's called decision ready, so sometimes they get priority processed.
One more question.
Yes. Anything about business sponsored? No. Should be an email. Any more questions?
With the partner visa or the migration visa, you have to apply again after 2 years.
Good question. No, when you make the initial application, you apply for the temporary and the permanent together. After 2 years from initially lodging it, the Department of Immigration will send an email to you saying, hey, we know that you've now been in a relationship for 2 years since lodging it. Please send us some updated information to show you're still in the relationship. And then give you a checklist of extra stuff they want to see, just to make sure you haven't broken up during that time or anything like that. A lot of the time people have, but they still keep evidence that they're living together because they're nice. So one of them keeps getting the visa.
But you don't have to pay again?
No. Don't have to pay again. You pay the visa application. You might have to pay your agent again. I don't know. But you don't have to pay the department again. Okay? Thank you for listening. I apologise that I couldn't present in Spanish today. If you've got any further questions, you can email us. That's my email address up the top, or Jocelyn's if you want to email in Spanish. Okay?